Okay, today we are talking about marketing your club, and you're all aware that this is recording since this is the second session. A little bit about myself. Why am I even qualified to give this speech? I classify myself as a marketing specialist. As Rhonda shared, I'm part of Voorhees Toastmasters Club, and I was previously a member of Jolly Road Toastmasters, where I started in 2019. I also am part of a public relations association in Philly, PPRA, that some of you may be familiar with, and I hone my public relations skills there and also am just learning my own craft. Currently, I work at Drexel University, where I work in marketing and communications. I do half paid media, so advising the schools and clients and dealing with our agencies of record, and the other half is social media. So if you look up Drexel University social channels, that's me. And I worked for 5 years at a nonprofit called Access Services in a communications capacity, doing writing, PR, and everything else that falls under that umbrella. All right, so here's a few quotes about social media. We're going to start here today, but I promise we will hit on other marketing tactics as the speech continues, so don't lose me halfway through. A reason that people really focus on social media as a tool for club promotion is that it's free, it's organic, it's easy to start. Often you already have channels that are started if you've inherited this position, and it also has multiple ways that you can meet your audience. I really liked the quote, "The strength of your social media is determined by the strength of your content." Each platform has their own types of content, of course. So TikTok, you might do 10-second funny videos, whereas Facebook, you may have more informational graphics and so on and so forth. But there's always good and meaningful content that can be created for each and every platform. I liked this graphic. How social media savvy are you? I'm going to give you a second to look through the icons. Think about how many you have interacted with in any way. Whether you have your own presence on there, you just follow people, or you've been an administrator. Personally, I counted 8. Some of them I use through my work, like Slack. Some of them I use personally, like TikTok and Facebook, and others like Twitter I just manage professionally. But even if you don't have any affiliation with these, hopefully you at least recognize majority of the icons here. Here they all are. Reddit's kind of a fun one if you've never been on there. A lot of people don't have a professional presence, but you can kind of scour different topics and get a feel for what the sentiment is on various topics. Not surprisingly, Facebook continues to be king in terms of social content. It by far has the most users. And if you've integrated into the business suite of it, you'll see that now they're affiliated with Instagram and you can manage the two together. Even in the paid advertising sphere, a lot of digital marketing dollars are still invested heavily in Facebook. One thing I really like to point out is that people often dismiss Facebook as being for an older audience, and we'll get a little into that later, but according to 2022 data from Sprout Social, which is a very robust social media site, they have a lot of info and blogs on there. Their largest audience actually continues to be people ages 25 to 34, which are that millennial audience. However, it is also true that a third of Facebook's audience is 45 or older. So yes, you can tap into that audience, but don't dismiss it as being only old folks or whatever your misconception may be on that platform. So here's the question: what platforms do you currently manage? Like I said, a lot of you probably inherited platforms if your club has been in existence for a while. So maybe you have a Facebook, which is a fairly common one. LinkedIn also makes sense because of professional development. But some of you may have tapped into Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, and if not, you may be interested in doing so. There's a lot that goes into choosing the right social media platform. Like I said, I manage Drexel social media, and it's critical to not start platforms just because other universities have those platforms. They have to serve a purpose and a place. So here's some steps that you can consider as you choose the right social media platform. The first is to consider the nature of your business. which may sound kind of silly because we all have the same business, Toastmasters, but we may have different business priorities. So for example, you might just be really on the track to recruit some new members, but you may also have other goals. Maybe you really want to get some earned media, some public relations. Maybe you're trying to create a dialogue within your members during the week. So for example, if you're trying to do earned media and reach people in the news sphere, Twitter might be a great resource, whereas that might not make sense if you're really just trying to get your current members to talk and interact throughout the week. The second thing on here is consider member demographics. Is there a group that you're already really appealing to that you can continue to grow on? Do you have people that are maybe coming from a particular local business? Do you have college students? Do you see that your club is really growing in the millennial audience? If so, maybe you tap into Instagram, which has 2 billion users, half of which are under the age of 34. So thinking about who your current members are and how you can increase that presence in your club. The third is go where your ideal customer is. So maybe you take an audit of your current club members. Maybe you say, hey, 75% of our members are 45 to 65, and we'd really like to recruit a bit of a younger audience and diversify. That can help decide your strategy because perhaps you'll think, where are the 25 to 34-year-old audience? Like we said, some of them are on Facebook, and of course, Instagram and TikTok may be worth considering now. And another thing that people really don't pay attention to sometimes is the backbone of their digital footprint. That's your website. If people are interested in your product or your service or joining your club, they're going to go from social media and they're going to check out your website. So make sure that it's up to speed, make sure that there's a place for new members to absorb content, make sure they can find what they need, whether that's a Zoom link or directions to where your club meeting is held. Okay, so now you've determined which social media platforms you're going to start with, and now it's time to develop a strategy. I'm going to use my club as an example, and maybe think along about how you can implement this into your club as well. So G, identify goals. For our club, maybe we want to recruit new members and get some earned media. Second, we're going to determine our target audience. Young working professionals is going to be a great place to start for recruitment, and targeting reporters on social media would be a good way to start to get some earned media. Think about appropriate platforms. Like I shared, we already have a Facebook and that already has some engagement and followers, so it makes sense for our club to continue this tactic, but maybe you're starting from scratch and have to rethink that from the beginning. Twitter is a great place, like I said, to follow news trends, to follow reporters, to engage with them. We'll get into pitches later, but you can think about who is writing in the nonprofit beat and how can you follow them and engage with their content in some way. Assign a social media manager. So if you're in the VP PR position, most likely that'll be you, but that doesn't mean that other people can't help you as well. It's always good to have multiple admins on a page who can have their own perspectives, who can take part of answering messages or comments if someone's not available. Always have more than one person on your page. Create a plan of action. Don't start too ambitious. You're not going to post 6 or 7 times a week. It's not going to happen. Maybe you'll do it for the first week or the second week, but it'll trail off. Pick something that you can commit to. I always say pick 2 to 3 times a week to post. That's manageable, that makes sense. It'll still keep the page active. And as you start to see what content's performing well, you can continue to add to that strategy. And finally, measure results. Particularly if you're starting a new platform, check in after 3 months. You don't have to check in after 3 weeks necessarily. You're not going to have enough of a track record to really see if you're being successful in that area. But I would say check in at 3-month intervals. And by a year, you should have a gauge of if the profile is going to be successful for you. Strategy is the roadmap to realize desired results. We're going to read through a couple of these. I gave you some examples in terms of Voorhees Toastmasters Club. But this is a great slide to maybe even take a screenshot of or write down some notes if you're starting your strategy from scratch. So you're going to start with goals. Perhaps, like I said, it's to increase membership. Perhaps it's to increase meeting attendance, member recognition. Perhaps you're providing leadership and communication tips. LinkedIn would be a great platform for that. Maybe you want to demonstrate skills. TikTok's awesome for that. You can just get on camera and give some quick tips or show how you've presented in front of a conference or other ideas like that. It's really visual. You can acquire new club leads. I would say at least once or twice a month, we get people messaging our Facebook page wondering about the club. And when someone answers quickly and can provide them the resources and the links, that's really helpful for them in order to actually join a meeting. Who's your audience? I really liked this column. It gave some new ideas. Local residents. Maybe they're people who aren't even working. Maybe they're retired. Maybe they're college students or taking a break from work and need something professional to do. That's a great audience to tap into. Recent graduates, especially if you live in a college town, perhaps near Glassboro, near Rowan, or you're in the city or up near Princeton, that's going to be a really good audience for you to think about. Sales professionals. Pretty much everybody has to give presentations at some point in their career, but sales professionals in particular, of course, are going to need to excel in that skill. Entrepreneurs, job seekers. If anyone's been in an interview recently, you know how nerve-wracking that can be, and being able to present yourself confidently is going to be a great skill and a great pitch for you to recruit some new members. Educators, professionals seeking advancement, especially if their workplace is going to pay for it. I know that was an incentive for me when I joined. And industry-specific professionals. We talked about some of the platforms on here. There's some you may not have even thought about. I think oftentimes people forget YouTube is its own social media platform. It doesn't just have to be a library of videos, though it's certainly okay to use it in that way. Like we talked about, your manager, your VP PR, of course, is going to be there, but who else maybe has just an interest in social media, is really good at it. Maybe they already have an influential audience on their personal and can promote the club in some way. That would be a great idea for LinkedIn, getting people who already have a presence to be able to share and be ambassadors for your program. Actions, what type of stuff can you put on there? Graphics are great, and those 1080 by 1080 squares you're going to put on Instagram and Facebook are useful, but think a little bit outside the box. I've seen some companies have success with straight text posts, just asking questions, which is kind of the opposite of what most articles will tell you to do. Tagging, if you're doing joint club things, if you're partnering with local businesses, the more you tag, the more reach you'll get. Adding hashtags, doing interactive things like polls, which you can do on Twitter, you can do in your Instagram story. So think a little bit outside the box in terms of what you can post. And then measure. Hopefully when you're getting guests to your club, you're asking them how they found you. Maybe after implementing a successful social media strategy, you'll be able to attribute members to that. Think about your likes and your shares. Although if you're getting good engagement, don't focus too much on the likes. People get a little caught up in the vanity metrics, we call them. Having people message your page and engaging with your content and sharing it is a more meaningful metric. I really like this template. People sometimes think with strategies, it's like a 10-page long document that's super wordy and hard to create. Shouldn't be hard to create. It should be a tool that makes managing social easier for you. So start with something simple like this. And again, you can take a screenshot of this or a picture and recreate it for your own club. I like this example too because it picks 3 platforms that's manageable. LinkedIn, which may reach that professional audience, Instagram, which might meet that younger audience, and Facebook, which has a little bit of a diverse audience. Facebook's also cool because you can host events and different things like that as well. And the last part of the social media part is going through some of the specific profiles and their benefits. You're probably familiar with a lot of this, so we won't linger on it too long. Like I said, Facebook continues to be the biggest platform worldwide, so don't underestimate it. Facebook is not dying. The audience is not older, as we've seen before. There's still a lot of content that you can post on there that's going to perform well. Again, the most popular age group is that 25 to 34 group. So if that's your target audience, perhaps consider Facebook. It's good for sharing information and media, advertising, if you want to try boosting posts or doing some more low-cost advertising. group discussions, sometimes just simple things like a status update, asking a question. You can do Facebook groups if you want to make it more meaningful. You can do your Facebook story. Now you're probably familiar, you can post on your Instagram story and automatically post on your Facebook story if you want to do both at once. Longer videos. I highly recommend if you're posting on Facebook to download the video and put it on there. Facebook does not favor YouTube links. And event invite management. Great if you're having an open house. It's a less awkward way for people to invite people in their network to events, because sending, an email or talking to them in person may feel unapproachable, but inviting someone to a Facebook event is just a really casual way to do it and make people aware. Recommended format, like we talked about, you can use a group, you can make it public or private, whatever fits your mission at that time. Administration, I know that Facebook recently relaunched some of this stuff, but like I said, just make sure you have a backup admin always, whether you're on vacation or you lose access to the account or whatever it is. You don't want to be the only one managing it. And some engagement metrics. Instagram also has a very large audience. It's a little bit of a lower group with 18 to 24 booming on there, which is not the same as Facebook. So a great one if you're trying to reach a college audience or just a younger audience in general. Facebook's great for sharing visual content. By that, I don't mean that your whole Instagram should be graphics. I actually highly advise against this. People are quick to scroll past those. Things that perform well, in my experience, are Instagram stories, carousels, because if they haven't looked at the post, Instagram will start showing them the second and third picture to try and grab them in. You can do collages with multiple photos. Those are visually appealing. Instagram Reels are nice because they reach an audience beyond people that follow you. It's kind of like TikTok where people scroll based on topics or hashtags. So that's a nice thing to explore if you're trying to reach a new audience. Recommended format, again, this connects to Facebook. So if you don't have a paid management tool like Hootsuite, you can use Facebook Business Manager to manage those too. You can also use Later, is a free one that a lot of people use. And engagement metrics, views and comments are good. Meetup is one that you may not be as familiar with, but it still has a pretty big audience, 49 million you'll see. So this is a great way to find people with common interests or to connect with people locally. I know people who have used this to find similar interest in hiking or whatever it is around the area. So if someone's looking at professional development or public speaking or anything in that sphere, they may find your club and attend. Nextdoor, I am not super familiar with, I'll be honest, but this has a little bit of an older skew with 50 to 64. It's the same kind of idea as Meetup where you're meeting a hyper-local audience. So something to explore if you're trying to recruit from a centralized area. And LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn has the most potential for Toastmasters because people are on there for the purpose of networking and professional development, which is exactly what Toastmasters will offer them. There's a large skew again towards the 25 to 34 and 18 to 24. Many people in the group have college degrees. So if you're looking more for a working professional, this might be a good platform for you. You're going to set up your page as a company, which is important, not a personal page. That'll give you a presence and it will allow you to access the admin tools so that you're not posting just from your personal account. And again, you can measure comments, like, shares. This is a good one where you can give people prompts. So if you are going to share something from your company page, you could give some sample text to your members like, hey, this would be great to share with a personal note about your experience in Toastmasters so that their own networks can start to see it. Some larger companies do this in an employee advocacy capacity, and it's a similar model. And finally, this is a great suggestion that I did not create myself, but to have a Gmail for your club address. This ensures that all the officers have access to the account if needed. Make sure you're not going to get locked out of your account. Succession is easier for next year when you transfer things. And of course, Google Suite just has a lot of free tools that you can utilize in your position besides social media. Maybe you want to create a content calendar and you can do that in Google Sheets. If if you want to create slides or a calendar and schedule it in that way. Those are all great possibilities in the Google Suite. And finally, just some quick examples. Like I said, if you're going to post a video, try and download it from YouTube and then post it on Facebook. It just tends to get better engagement. Something super easy to do is post a word of the day once a week, just so you have a recurring series and maybe people know on Mondays to check in for that. You can do new and existing member profiles. Those are always fun, and it makes your team members feel appreciated. Everyone likes to see themselves highlighted. You can share announcements and communication tips. Like I said, YouTube can act as a library for your resources, but there's more beyond it as well. You can pin like-minded channels, you can have a feature video, you can utilize hashtags in there as well. So I encourage you to explore that a little bit. TikTok is scary. I know a lot of you may be looking at this like, I don't want to be on TikTok, and that's fine. But I encourage you to think beyond it just being scary. It's actually fairly easy to use. You can take videos in the app, you can edit videos in the app, you can find trending sounds that you can use filters, you can look on what's trending and just fit into a theme if you're not sure where to start. Or you can just give some public speaking tips. As we all know, public speaking is a common fear amongst people, and you may reach an audience that you didn't even think of. Here's a couple people who are having some success in it. And like I said, just don't be afraid to try. I was when I got to Drexel, and now that I do it more often, it just becomes second nature. You'll just be, at a club meeting and think of something that you can talk about on camera after, and it can be fun, I promise. All right, I promised we were not going to talk about social media the whole time. So here's some traditional marketing methods that still work, and then we're going to dive a little bit into those deeper. Things like newspaper ads are still relevant. Press releases and earned media, I think, are an awesome potential for clubs because they're still free. You can do organizational ads. TV and radio ads may not be super possible if you have a limited budget, but you can look into PSAs, which are public service announcements that you might be able to get into as a nonprofit status. Business cards. Maybe you have a personal business card if you're a freelancer or something, and just thinking about how you can tie Toastmasters into that. Email and newsletters, billboards, which is pretty ambitious, also very expensive. Handwritten notes, postcard mailers, and other Toastmaster branded things. So here's some great examples in the earned media area. This picture right here, the one on my left-hand side with the Toastmasters International logo, is a free calendar spot on the Patch website, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later. But scour your local websites. Oftentimes, newspaper sites like these have places to submit your events for free. Usually they'll be reviewed by someone and then approved, and people can just look on the event calendar for their town and find this. This is a great free resource for you. Also, go into Google and just type Toastmasters and then go in your news tab. Just in this past month, I found these two great press releases. They're not from our district, but they still speak really great about Toastmasters, and they'll give you an idea about how you can push your club into the earned media world. So this is the picture you see here with the yellow Toastmasters banner. This is a story about that gentleman, and I thought it was really well written. I'll try and drop the link in the chat after this when I'm out of the presentation mode. But there's some elements here that I wanted to talk about. If you're not familiar with press releases at all, these are just some tips for you, and you can certainly go on Google and really dive into what makes a good pitch. The first is having a really catchy title. So Braintree Man with Asperger's finds his voice in Quincy Toastmasters. That catches my attention. I don't know about you, but it's not Quincy Toastmasters Club, learn how you can develop professionally. It's a story about a person. The circle under that is a quote from him. It's great to have firsthand experience and testimonies from people. People want to read about other people's experiences. Then this third circle down here is where you start to actually talk about Toastmasters. Your tendency is going to be to write about Toastmasters in the first paragraph because you're like, I want to promote our club. Reporters and people reading are going to scan very quickly. And if that's all they're reading in the first or second paragraph, they're not going to be interested. So again, push that down lower. Whatever's the most important, put it on top. And then over here, we go back into storytelling. So just tie that theme of it's a story about a person, not your club. That will gain the audience's attention, and you'll still be promoting your club, even if it's not a straight advertisement. And here are just another few quick elements of a successful pitch. Do your homework when selecting who to pitch. I think this is the most important tip. You don't want to pitch someone who's writing about baseball, a story about Toastmasters. So go on your local papers, see who's writing on the nonprofit beat, find a story that maybe is relevant. Maybe they're writing about another club like Rotary or the Chambers of Commerce that has a similar taste to it. And then when you write your pitch, say, hey, I saw you write for XYZ newspaper and that you write in the nonprofit sphere. I read this recent story of yours, thought it was great. Here's another story that you may be interested in based on your areas of expertise. That's going to show them that, hey, this person actually took the time to see who I was, what I write about, that I'm a good fit for this piece. And that might get them to actually even read your press release to begin with. Like I said, pitch a story, not your club. Your tendency, if you've never written a press release, is going to be, again, to emphasize your club, but that's not what people want to read about. Short and catchy subject line. So not only the title of your piece, but what are you going to write in the email subject line to even get them there? Add values for readers. Yeah, you're going to talk about your club, but bring it into, maybe it was a story about, like the story we just read about, the man with Asperger's who now felt empowered to speak. Well, how can other people like that, join and feel comfortable, and what are the steps to being included and involved? Super important, never ever include an attachment in a press release that you're writing to someone in the media. Don't attach pictures, don't attach the press release. It comes off spammy, they won't open it. Obviously, spell check, super important, come off professional. And finally, follow up. Not every press release is going to be picked up, and that's okay. Send one follow up. If you don't hear back, it may be time to let it go. Maybe start exploring other reporters. And sometimes they'll get back to you and say, hey, this piece really isn't right for me right now, but at least you got a response and you can pitch a story to them in the future. Or you can even ask for feedback about what they may be looking for. Like I said, if you go to the patch website, you can look up your local patch. So maybe you're in Cherry Hill or whatever town it is, Google it, and then that's when you can submit your event calendars. So if you can do that for every meeting, great. Maybe you can just get on there for an open house or whatever your capacity is, but that's definitely a good free resource for you to consider. And finally, again, the website is the backbone, right? So start with one section of your website. I know that rewriting or reformatting an entire website can be super overwhelming. So start with one area and continue to improve it as you go along. Jolly Road Toastmasters was my old club, and I pulled this off there. They have a whole new member section, which is great. Most people visiting are going to want to see right away. How do I get connected? What are the links? What can I expect? Having this type of FAQ easily accessible is going to be a great first place for you to start. Many people may not know that Toastmasters International has a ton of free resources for you to use. You can type in Toastmasters International brand guide. Maybe you use Canva, which is a great free resource. They have all the hex colors on there. They have logos you can download. They have brand standards so that you know how and when to use the logo and other things. They have fonts they recommend to use, all types of stuff. If you're not a graphic designer and you don't understand what I'm saying, that's okay. But look on there, and it may be easier than you think to implement some of those things. For example, in Canva, you can just copy and paste that code for the colors, drop them in, your graphics will match the standards. But maybe you're not even there yet and you just want to download some resources. That's also great. They have flyers like these where, say you're having a speech contest, you can download this. It allows you to type right in this PDF, and then you can save it and share it. So you don't even have to do anything beyond just downloading and typing in your information. these were created beautifully and in brand, so don't be afraid to use them or feel like you need to create your own things, because people that you're promoting to probably haven't seen these. You probably haven't seen these. It's fine to reuse them. Other resources they have, if you're doing an email, they have these email banners, which I think are great. Like I said, you can do that new member section on your website, and maybe you're like, where do I even begin with that? Here's where you can. Go to Toastmasters International, and they have an FAQ about what is Toastmasters, what's in it for me. Feel free to pull a copy directly off this or match it for your club. Great resource. If you want to be ambitious and do some paid advertisements, they have templates for that too. Maybe you want to start a corporate club and you can get them to sponsor a piece of art in their office, or maybe you want to use these on your Facebook banner or whatever. They have all types of other things like this that you can download. All right, that one quicker than I thought, but that's okay. We have some time for questions. Okay. Feel free to drop them in the chat too. If you don't want to call out, that's fine. I will open the chat now and take a minute if anyone wants to submit any questions, or just open them out.
Hi, Hannah. I have a question. My name's Anoon. I'm calling in from the University City Toastmasters Club. I've done a little bit of paid and earned media, so to speak, as a social media person, but I've never pitched a story. But I can think of a few stories I'd like to pitch. How do you contact a journalist when you know you want to speak to a specific journalist, but you can't find their email or phone number? Like, do you reach out to the paper that they write for sometimes?
Good question. Usually when I've found reporters that I want to pitch to, I have had the opportunity to find their email. Usually if you go to the story or a story that they've recently written, you can click on their name that's hyperlinked, and that'll often give you their email address. If not, check the directory for the newspaper. They may be listed under whatever beat they write under. If you can't find it, maybe check LinkedIn next. They may have their email listed there if you're lucky. Backup source after that, you can go to Twitter and see if they're active there. Maybe shoot them a DM and ask them for their email. You know, give just like a couple sentences. Hey, I have this great story you might be interested in. Do you have an email I can reach you at? But they do try to be accessible. So I think that in more cases than not, you'll find their email. I have been on a few panels recently with media people, and 9 out of 10 are going to prefer an email over a phone call. But worst case scenario, you can pick up the phone and try and contact them that way.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anna, this is Juanita Sion Leary. I think you did an excellent job, especially those templates breaking down each platform, because I've really had struggled with that before, even in my everyday life. And so that you were very helpful. Thank you so much. And I'm the VPR person for my advanced Toastmasters Club. So I have a lot of things to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. And I saw Rhonda sharing that the presentations would be shared. That's correct. So you guys will have access to those graphics if you didn't get a chance to screenshot them. Any other questions I can answer?
Yeah, I have two.
Okay.
You said attachments don't work for press releases. They do work for me, though, but I use really local community papers that come out on a weekly basis, and we get a ton of good response when we run a picture of a group of us in our club, or somebody that has won some sort of an award or something, and it just, or if I'm featured in it, I'll have people actually come up to me and say, weren't you in the what? And so they work. And but I think it's maybe because they're so local. So I wouldn't shy away from including like an attachment of a photograph to help enhance your newspaper appeal.
Yeah, and just to clarify by that, I meant include it in the body of the message. Certainly include a picture or whatever you want to. It's just sometimes reporters may take it as a spam or they're afraid to open attachments.
Yeah, and my second question is, so we have access to all of the screenshots that we saw and the visuals, and just how do we get a hold of those? Are you going to send us a link, or how's that going to happen?
Rhonda's going to send both presentations out, so I'll be sure to get her the most updated one, and then that'll be sent out to you guys with the appendix that has some of the links and resources that we pulled these
Great.
graphics from.
So it's like no action required on our parts for that. It'll just come to our emails then.
I believe so. Rhonda, please.
That's correct. For all
Great.
registrants, you will get the material that was reviewed today.